ChatGPT has gotten a huge boost in power this week as it has been upgraded from GPT 3.5 to GPT-4. And my Twitter feed has been absolutely flooded by people playing with ChatGPT, experimenting, and having their minds blown by all of the new things it can do. In this video, I'll show you 2 ways you can get access to the new GPT-4, and we'll also look at all the ways GPT-4 is a huge improvement over old ChatGPT. Let's get into it. So first up, what is new with GPT-4? OpenAI has been working on this model for the past 6 months, and they finally released it. And one of the biggest things here is that there have been huge improvements in the reasoning and conciseness of the model. Just an example on this page where GPT-4 does a better job at picking out a time based on all these different people's availabilities compared to the original 3.5 version. And we can also see from within ChatGPT that there's a difference in the abilities it has based on the model. So I can choose either the default GPT 3.5 or 4. And right off the bat, you can see that reasoning is a full 5 out of 5, conciseness is 4 out of 5, and compared to only 3 and 2 on the same metrics for 3.5. The only downside so far with GPT-4 is that it is slower. You're going to notice that when it is generating responses, it is slower than the original 3.5 version is. GPT-4 is also more creative and better at problem solving. We can see that this shows up in the data that OpenAI has given us. So as you can see here, the GPT 3.5 version is the blue, and then green is the GPT-4 improvements on those test scores for a bunch of different professional tests. So we have things like the LSAT, the bar exam for law, and a bunch of AP classes. So for example, look at this huge improvement for the bar exam for law. The original 3.5 version of GPT was performing at the 10th percentile, and just with the upgrade to GPT-4, it is now up in the 90th percentile of performance. So GPT-4 is a lot more capable, a lot smarter than the old version. There's a couple of new features that come with GPT-4 that it is capable of, but have not been released yet. In my opinion, the biggest one of those is the visual input. You are going to be able to include an image as part of your prompt when you're interacting with GPT-4. So it gives an example here on their product page for GPT-4 in what you can put an input, what can I make with these ingredients, provide a picture, and it's going to tell you something you could create using eggs and flour and whatever else is in this image. So it is analyzing the image, understanding what is in it, and then telling you what it got out of that, which is huge because I don't know if those CAPTCHA image things where you have to pick like every picture with a truck in it to prove you're not a robot, I don't know if that's going to be around much longer because now the machines, the robots, can tell what's in an image. And the second major feature we're getting with GPT-4 is the longer context. So previously ChatGPT had a maximum of 3,000 words I think you could input into it, and now it's being bumped up to 25,000 words of text. So this is huge for content creators, for anyone that's doing long form content. You're going to be able to put in a whole blog post, put in a whole transcript of a long form podcast, and you could get ChatGPT to edit it, analyze it, improve it for you, rewrite it, whatever you need. At this point, you don't have to break it down into chunks anymore. So what hasn't changed? Firstly, ChatGPT still lies, it still hallucinates made up answers. But according to OpenAI, this has been significantly improved. And according to their website, it says that GPT-4 is 40% more likely to produce factual responses in comparison to GPT 3.5. We'll see if that remains to be true. ChatGPT is still not connected to the internet, so it is not like Bing, which can perform searches, look up URLs, and then read what's on there before answering you, which means it still only knows things up until September 2021. GPT-4 still has a bias. We've seen this before in that you could get it to write a nice poem about President Biden, but you couldn't get it to do one about President Trump. But apparently this has been reduced, so I don't know, you might want to play around with it and see if you're still getting very left-leaning political biases in what comes out, but it is still an issue and needs to be worked on. So how to get access to GPT-4, and there are 2 ways to do this, one paid and one free. So the first way is the paid way, and that is to log into ChatGPT and simply sign up for ChatGPT Plus, which is their paid plan. And the ChatGPT Plus plan is $20 per month. Sign up for that, and once you've done that, you'll see you have the choice at the top to choose your model. You can go with the default GPT 3.5 or switch it over to GPT-4, but you will notice right now there is a limit to how much you can use it. GPT-4 currently has a cap of 100 messages every 4 hours. I don't know how long this is going to be in place, but for now it's brand new. Everyone is trying to come and play with it, so just a limit to keep in mind when you're using this. I imagine this limit will increase in the future. The second way to get access to GPT-4 is through Bing Chat. It's funny because this has been out for a few weeks now. We've all been using it and playing with it, and it's just been revealed and confirmed by Microsoft that this entire time Bing has been running on an early version of GPT-4, so we've already been playing with it. This makes a lot of sense because through playing with Bing myself, I have noticed it is a lot more capable, it is a lot more powerful than ChatGPT, and it's not just because Bing is connected to the internet, it also is because it is running on a more powerful, more recent version of GPT. And if you want to get access to Bing Chat, you're going to have to go to bing.com and sign up for the waitlist. I've already got it, so I can click here to go and chat now and start chatting with Bing. There was a bit of a waitlist before. I'm not sure what it's like now, but you might have to sit tight a little bit before you get in. But once you do, you can start chatting with Bing with GPT-4. The interesting thing about Bing is that it is connected to the internet, so it does know things more recent than ChatGPT does, and you can get it to perform searches as part of your prompts. I'm not going to get into Bing in this video. I've done a whole other video up here which you can watch on how you can get the most out of Bing AI and actually get good, interesting outputs that are useful to you with that tool as well. So check that out if you're interested. So to see what GPT-4 is capable of, let's play around with it and see what it can do compared to the old version within ChatGPT. So let's start with a simple question, and we'll go with the default ChatGPT 3.5 first, see what it spits out. Let's explain Bitcoin to me like I'm 5, and this is the old version of GPT. So it's written a 3-paragraph explanation. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. But again, I did ask it to explain like I'm 5, so we do want it to be simple. Let's put that into a GPT-4 session and see what the difference is. And immediately I can see it is more tailored towards a 5-year-old in the language it is chosen. And again, we have 3 paragraphs, simple language tailored towards a 5-year-old. Just looking at it, I think this looks a little more interesting and a little more useful than the first version that 3.5 gave me, but you be the judge. What do you think? Is this version better? Is the first version better? I think this one wins out. It just feels like the response is a little smarter, a little more aware of what it's actually talking about. Let's test GPT-4's analysis skills, because this is one of the improvements. It's supposed to be better at analyzing and understanding and breaking down complex topics. So let's do that by asking it to explain a joke. So we'll do GPT-4 first since we're here. Okay, so here's the joke. Can you explain why this joke is funny? Here's the joke. What kind of noise does a witch's vehicle make? Broom, broom. A great joke? I know. So it tells me this joke is funny due to the play on words and the use of puns. It relies on the familiarity with 2 different concepts, that witches ride brooms basically, and that vehicles typically make a vroom vroom sound. So it's a play on words for broom and vroom. So it does a pretty good job. So that's GPT-4. Let's try GPT 3.5 and try the same thing. So you can see it is outputting much faster. Version 4 is still pretty slow. So again, I would say this is pretty comparable. It is again comparing that a witch's vehicle is a broom, and broom sounds like vroom, which is the sound that traditional vehicles make. So I would say these are pretty on par. But okay, this is a pretty basic analysis it has to do here. So we might not be getting GPT-4 to really shine in the situation because it's a simple enough concept that 3.5 does a good enough job of analyzing it anyways. So let's test it with some more complex jobs. Because GPT-4 is apparently much better at prose and it is much more creative, let's get it to write us a story and see if what it writes is better than GPT 3.5's. Write me a story about a girl named Luna who goes to find the man in the moon whose name is Mr. Camembert. So let's see what it comes up with. It's pretty long, pretty good little story here. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Luna who lived in a small town in the outskirts of a city. Luna had always been fascinated with the moon and blah, blah, blah. So it hasn't done a half bad job. Luna goes to the forest. She sees the bright light of the moon in the distance. She talks to the man in the moon who invites her to the moon, and she climbs a tree to get to the moon and explores with Mr. Camembert. Once she's tired, she climbs the tree back down and goes home. So it's put together a decent little story. It's maybe not very exciting, probably not very creative either. So let's try the same thing with GPT-4. So we can already see with the word choices it's using in the first sentence, it is much more descriptive and much more interesting sounding. So once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the verdant valley below the majestic mountains, there lived a girl named Luna. That already sounds more interesting to me than what we got with GPT 3.5. And it's getting more creative in the responses. It's not just like she's a kid that's curious about the moon. She has a special connection because she was born on the night of a full moon. It talks about how growing up, her parents would tell her stories about Mr. Camembert, the man in the moon. It goes into the backstory of who Mr. Camembert is, what is he like, in that Mr. Camembert, the man in the moon, is the guardian of the moon's secrets. So there's already a lot more interesting themes and things going on in this story compared to the other one, and it is still going. I don't know how long this output's going to be, but it's already looking like it's a longer story than 3.5 spit out. So definitely I can see the improvements that were made with GPT-4 for something like this. It seems a lot more creative. It gives you a lot more interesting results, and I'm excited to see what people can do with this. All right, so I waited till it finished and it kept going and going and eventually just cut off. So if I wanted to, I could get it to continue that story. But already a lot more interesting things are happening. There's an actual story involved. There is an incantation it wrote for Luna to say in order to be granted passage to go to the moon, which rhymes and everything. So that's really interesting, really creative. I love it. Another important use case for ChatGPT and Bing is to do things like helping you improve your writing or editing pieces of text. So let's see how each version compares with editing something. So as an example, let's take that shorter version of the story from 3.5 and ask ChatGPT to edit that as if they worked at a publishing company. So I have copied that story as well as prefaced it with this prompt. So you're an editor that works for a publishing company. Read the following draft and provide detailed feedback. Your feedback should be focused on grammar, legibility, and originality. I want the draft to be entertaining to read. And then I pasted in that story about Luna and the man in the moon. So here we go. Overall, this is fun and engaging story that will capture the attention of young readers. However, there are a few areas where some improvements can be made. So looking at some of the suggestions for edits, I don't think they're super great. It's telling me to add a comma here, put a semicolon here instead, or replace "as she gazed up at the full moon" with "one night" instead, which it says to give a clearer sense, but to me that sounds less interesting. So it does all right, and it would probably do a good job at least helping you improve your grammar. It says in terms of originality, the story is quite unique and imaginative, but I thought the story was kind of boring and generic, so difference of opinion, I guess. So let's try this again with GPT-4 and see what we get. So let's go. So GPT-4 is taking a bit of a different approach. It's breaking its answers down into sections. So first is grammar. So yeah, in the first paragraph, consider rephrasing "one night as she gazed up at the full moon, she suddenly had an idea," to "one night while gazing up at the full moon, an idea suddenly struck her." Okay, that could be more interesting. Some of these are kind of nitpicky, so instead of Luna's eyes widened with excitement, it wants us to do Luna's eyes widened in excitement. So I don't know how useful that is, but we'll see. Okay, and it's broken it down also to sections on legibility and originality and ways that I could improve those things. So if under legibility, it's giving me some alternate sentences just to tweak and change some of those. And originality, it also thinks it's original. I kind of disagree, but it is saying that some elements such as the cheese house and the character named Mr. Camembert could be further developed to enhance their uniqueness. And it's funny it says that because in the story that was written by GPT-4, these things were developed more and made more interesting. And it's telling me to consider a more distinctive world for Mr. Camembert on the moon rather than just what it was given. And again, in GPT-4's version of the story, it gave a much more fleshed out story and background of the landscape and world on that moon. So although it's not perfect, I do think the suggestions given by GPT-4's version of an editor is better. It is an improvement over 3.5's. What do you think? Leave me a comment. Another thing GPT-4 is supposed to have improved over 3.5 is that it's better at connecting various disparate ideas and analyzing different things and pulling them together in a coherent way. And a good example I came across on how it does that is one by Professor Malik. You should go follow him, by the way. He's great, has a great Substack on all things AI. He came up with this prompt for Bing, which, as we have learned, has been using GPT-4 this whole time to do this. So he said, "Bing, come up with movie ideas for a movie starring the cast of Fast and the Furious 8, except The Rock is replaced with a puppet of a dolphin. The movie is a historical drama set in the 1300s and also incorporates at least one William Carlos Williams poem into the plot. The movie should also act as commentary on a youth fad of the 20th century." So this is combining a lot of different things. It has a movie, the cast of it, replacing a member of the cast with a puppet of a dolphin. And then it has themes like a youth fad from the 20th century, a poem, and incorporate all that into one thing. And if you take the time to read through this movie idea that Bing came up with, it does a very interesting job of combining all of those things into a plausible plot for a movie. So if you want to actually read what that says, pause the video and check that out. It's very entertaining. You can use the similar idea behind that to get ChatGPT to do something a little more interesting. So instead of put all of these things into a movie script, we could say, take these 2-3 ideas and come up with some product ideas that incorporate all of those things. So for example, come up with 10 product ideas that combine these two things, ChatGPT and pet care. So let's see what old ChatGPT can do with that. So we have Pet Pal, a mobile app that uses ChatGPT to offer personalized pet care advice, a device that analyzes pet vocalizations and translates them into human language, coaching service, and mobile app. It gives me a bunch of ideas that incorporate those two things. And some of these may be good avenues to go after. A lot of them are kind of ridiculous. So let's see what GPT-4 is able to do with that same prompt. GPT-4 is giving me a little bit more in what the ideas are. It explains a little better what the idea is behind the name it gives. So we have a pet training tool that uses positive reinforcement and gives you personalized training advice based on that. We have a health assistant. We have an adoption matcher that helps pet owners find the perfect match by analyzing their lifestyle and preferences. So looking at this list, I'm already seeing ideas that look a little more feasible, like that could actually be pursued and turned into a business compared to 3.5. So I think that is for sure an improvement. I think it has a better understanding of how those elements work, how ChatGPT works, how pet care works, and how those ideas intertwine and how those come together into a potential new product. So I do think the reasoning and the data analysis part of GPT-4 is a pretty big improvement over 3.5. And these are just some examples that I'm sure we're going to see a lot more interesting things being done with this tool over the coming weeks. That should give you some ideas about what you can do with GPT-4 and how it is an improvement over version 3.5. GPT-4 has a lot of promise, but obviously we haven't been granted access to all of the new features that OpenAI has been raving about, such as the extended text limit, as well as the ability to include images in our prompts. But it is really, really early at this point, and I'm sure we're gonna have these new features in no time. Of course, if you wanna get the most out of GPT-4, you're gonna have to become a master at crafting your prompts if you want it to do anything interesting or exciting. And I've created an AI prompt cheat sheet with all of the best examples and templates for prompts that you can use with either ChatGPT or with Bing to get it to output interesting and useful results. And you can grab that at the link in the description below. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and share it with a friend. That would truly help me out so much. Otherwise, if you're ready to learn more about how you can thrive in the digital revolution, then keep on watching and check out one of these videos next. I will see you guys next time.